When a doctor refused to amputate the 2 dangling fingers, Carton yanked them off himself to relieve the pain. Later that year, a surgeon removed the hand. So.
Oh, man. He was so primal.
Let's see here. All right, so we do have a main topic on the show, and this is what I was kind of leaning toward, where like Captain America, there could be an actual real person that he's not American, but he's British. But
I remember reading this yesterday when you sent this to me before.
Yeah,
and thinking, this guy, wow.
He's
anytime you ever want to think that you're tough or great or badass, whatever you want to use, you read this guy's story and you're like, holy crap!
Right, and
this guy did just to live,
and he had fun doing it. Now there's a lot that's happened with this guy, and we're gonna go over some of it, his story. But as you all know, this part of the section is where we do the video mode, and this will be cut out and as a separate video later on, so you can share with your friends. But this is the Unkillable Soldier, the story of Sir Adrian Carton de Wiart. As you can see, he looks kind of cool with looks like a badass with his mustache and his eye patch. But he's also, we're not going to ruin it, but he's also lost some other things through his time. Now, he was born in May of 1880. He's Belgian, and he went to Oxford University. And basically, he got a little bored of that. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to serve in the army over there in Great Britain, and he wanted to do something for his country. He really wanted to fight for his country. I don't know if he just liked fighting or that's what he wanted to do, but he just said, "I'm done with this Oxford University area. I'm gonna go and join the war." So he joined at 19. It's when he first joined the army, but he lied about his age. He said he was actually 25. And this is when he went to this war in South Africa. It was the second version of this. I think it's pronounced Boer War. And this is when he first got wounded. Now, this man, over time, he has been shot. He broke his back. He has been in plane crashes, all kinds of stuff. But this is the first time he actually got injured in battle. And he had wounds to his stomach and groin. Now, if that ever happened to you, I don't think I would continue on. He decided to where he had other dozens of injuries after this war here, but he wanted to keep moving on. He actually was in the I guess they called it the 4th Dragoons, I think is how you pronounce it. And he was fighting down there in South Africa when he got hurt. But he basically this was his first time he got injured. And then he moved on to obviously World War I. And he was this is when stuff gets crazy. So he was so this is 1914 when he first went out there. Again, this was in Africa and down in this was more of northern Africa when the Italians were kind of invading Africa there, Somalia. So he was shot in one arm and twice in the face, losing a part of his ear and his left eye. For his actions, he received a Distinguished Service Order. So there you go. And he lived. He got shot in the face.
Oh, he lived all right. I think that if I remember correctly, in the thing that you sent me about him, he was one of those really oddball anomalies where he craved war. You hear the stories from many veterans about how much war, I guess you could say, traumatized them and really put a bad outlook on life for them, or a really, traumatic mindset. And he's this guy who thrived off it. That is seriously, reading this, the more I read, the more it shocked me.
He was pretty. What do you say nowadays? What do the kids say nowadays? He's pretty metal. I would say he's.
He was very metal before metal. Straight up, man. This guy was a beast of a man.
Yeah, and so like I said, he lived. He survived these wounds.
Mhm,
And so basically, this is when he got his eye patch. Clearly,
mhm,
he first started out with a uncomfortable glass eye, and he wore it long enough to convince a medical board that he was fit to fight. And then he got so upset about it, he threw it out a taxi and just wore
mhm.
the eye patch. So he was like, "I'm not wearing this glass eye. I'm gonna. I don't know where it went. He threw it out the door of the taxi cab, and he's like, I'm just gonna wear this eye patch. I think it looks a lot. I think that was good for him to do that. I think then there you go. There's a picture of him in his eye patch there, and then he went on to fight even more in the war after he healed from those wounds. But um, I think at this moment in my life, if I was wounded this many times, I think I would bow out and move on. Right? This guy,
Dude,
did he
he
thrive
just
at
keeps
this?
going. That's what I mean. Like he really like really was all about the fight, which man, and the fact that he had everything that could happen to him from his eye to the groin to an ear, and the how a guy like this just keeps on going back for more. You don't really hear about that. Once a guy loses a leg, loses a finger, which and I totally understand it too, and I respect that. Once one of those things happen, I get why you want out. I get it.
Mhm.
This guy just like, hey, can we do more?
Yeah, and he did.
Ah,
He wanted to do
hey, oh,
more after this. So
he got what he wanted.
so in spring of 1915, so he went back to the infantry unit.
Mhm,
This was like one of the first nights that he was out there. The Germans launched an artillery barrage, and then Carton left his left hand was mangled when it shattered. When his shattered watch splintered into his wrist, so he
mhm.
lost his left hand because he was wearing a watch that shattered into his hand. When a doctor refused to amputate the two dangling fingers, Carton yanked them off himself to relieve the
Yanked
pain.
them.
Later that year, a surgeon removed the hand. So,
Oh, oh man. He was so primal. Like he was like a caveman, but lived in war where there was some like at least a closer thing to civility and being a regular American civilian or obviously Belgian civilian in this case, and yet he lives like he's a caveman, even
yeah,
though he's
yeah.
way past the caveman age. No one, and I mean no one, and this is definitely including myself. No one can live the way this man lives today. I mean,
No.
I've not heard of him, but this is just this
Yeah.
guy. Jeez.
And so, like, could the doctor's probably like, "Hey, look, I'm not going to take your hand off. I'm not going to take these." And he was like, "Just give me my own hand," and he just pops them right off. I didn't. Can you imagine being in that room, seeing him do that? You're probably like, okay. One thing he did right before we move on into one of his memoirs was he just enjoyed the war. Like he just
Yeah.
enjoyed fighting. He just didn't. It wasn't something he thought about as a thing that was tragic or anything. It's something he liked to do. It's something he did. And Yeah. So, okay. So again, he wanted more, like you said, even after losing a hand. So early July 1916. So World War I was still happening. Despite his disabilities, Carton de Wiart again pursued a medical board early 1916 to certify him for general service.
Mhm.
Attached to the infantry, he soon took command of the 8th Battalion. I'm not sure how that say that, but Gloucestershire Regiment in July at the Battle of
Gloucestershire, maybe
Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire
Yeah.
Regiment. That's my
Mhm.
educated guess on that Gloucestershire.
So in July, at the Battle of the Somme, the 8th was supported in a unit order to capture. So he went in again to fight more Germans. So he's like, "Look,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm missing a hand, I'm missing some fingers, I'm missing an eye, I'm severely wounded. I'm going to keep being in this war. I still want to fight the good fight." So after 3 commanders fell in action, so again, this is in July of 1916. Carton took control and drove through the German line to help capture the city. He led by example. Now, this is what blew me away. One of the things that blew me away. He led by example, pulling a grenade pins with his teeth and then throwing them with his one hand to take out the Germans. After doing this, he received the Victoria Cross, and I think that's equivalent to the maybe Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I thought that sounds like the.
Can you imagine this guy with one hand pulling grenades with his teeth, and then you're sitting there like he's part of your command and he's your leader? You like, hell yeah, I'm going. So he, for his bravery, and coolness and determination during the severe operations of a prolonged nature. That's why he got the medal. He quoted, his citation noted, he frequently exposed himself to the organization and positions of supplies, passing unflinchingly through fire, barrage of the most intense nature. So he was just like cool as a cat when things were just happening all around him. And you've seen characters like that in movies, right? Where a guy walks in, like Chuck Norris or Van Damme. They're like really cool, right? They got explosions behind them, and they're not doing anything. This guy lived it. This guy really lived it. This guy did it. I'm pretty sure he had explosions behind him happening all the time. So yeah, it's really crazy. Let's see. Let's see. One more here. So, and now at the end of the war, by war's end, Carton, he had included many more injuries, but he was always returned to the front. So every time he got hurt, he always wanted to come back. And he, like I said this before, he said, frankly, he had enjoyed the war that he wrote. He spent his interwar years with the British military mission in Poland when that country was fighting with the Germans and stuff like that, Soviets, Ukraine. So he was somewhere with a war at some time, surviving an ambush by Cossacks and 2 plane crashes. He was an aide de camp to the Polish king and settled in Poland in 1921. So he was. It seemed like he was always around war.
Settled, or what was left to get what, or do you, so would Alay just say, I'll take what's left of you? I think that seriously, that is like, man. Or is that, I would like to know what the settling was. That marriage, or was that retirement, or was that both? Because I would love to know what that was. Because I mean, how do you, after all that, if you guys, I guess you could say that's, once again, that must have been really genuine love to have a guy with busted, missing fingers, ear, eye, groin, to take that type of guy in your life. I mean, it definitely does take
he was married. He was married and had kids. He had all that. He had all of that. In 1939, when pre-World War II, Germans, invaded Poland, and then they pulling him back into the British Army and into another world war. He was promoted to Major General. He led campaigns in Norway, Yugoslavia, before falling into Italian hands in 1941. So yeah, he was around pre-World War II as well. And there he is. Hey, look at him. He's just, you can see his missing hand, and he's just got his pipe. He's a little bit not just. It was like nothing even fazed this guy. So during the World War II and up to his death in 1963, so he was released in 1943. Prime Minister Winston Churchill appointed him a diplomatic representative to Chinese leader. Again, I think it's Chiang Kai-shek. The position from which Carton retired in 1947. He eventually settled in Ireland and died at home in 1963 of a ripe old age of 83.
Wow. Wow. My mind is even re-looking at all this stuff, because I read the entire thing you sent me yesterday. Like, what a life. And he wasn't like some famous guy where we're saying, well, like, this is just a guy who did all this, and you're reading about his story.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What?
So again, he survived plane crashes. I think there was even when he was retired, he fell down some stairs and broke his back. Still lived.
I got back up. I'll fix it later. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, he
It will be
actually
fine.
he stepped off of I think a flight of stairs. He slipped down, breaking his back, went unconscious. And during his recovery, I guess that's another article here. They removed a huge amount of shrapnel from his body, so he had that too.
He was made of metal.
He was. Now,
literally.
it's funny that you say that. And when I was reading through this and kind of like, oh, this will be a great story to talk about. He has a book, so it's called Happy Odyssey. You can read all his memoirs there. It's autobiography. So if you want to read even more into this man, you can. But there was also I don't know if you know this band.
I definitely do. That's Sabaton.
Okay, so they actually have a song called "The Unkillable Soldier," dedicated to him.
That I did not know was about him. That gives a whole other like meaning like to that song. And it's cool because what's great about a band like Sabaton is that they actually have a very young fan base, and with how well versed they are in history. And I guess there's definitely been this whole wave of kids who are not knowing history, not acknowledging history. They're putting in front of them, but with music. So there's definitely a respect to that they're putting it in their lyrics, which is funny because if you see them on stage, they don't really come off super stoked. They're coming off as guys who I guess you consider just having a good time on stage and having fun with the show.
Yeah.
But the stuff that lyrically is in there is really, really heavy stuff. It's really, and I'm figuratively speaking, it's heavy. That is cool that someone out there is acknowledging history and what happened. And well, it definitely makes you think about how good we have it now. And you got to have these in mind, especially in a day and age where we have everything so instantaneous and convenience. Also, how much easier we have in terms not just of guys who did that, they did that on a Monday morning. We have to be drafted if we want something to even come close like that to happening.
Yeah.
We don't realize how good we have it. When you see guys like that was just his ordinary life.
Yeah, and he enjoyed doing it. He knew he had to he's like, look, these things are happening around me in the world. He knew what he had to do for his country, and he just did it. Now I don't know, like you said, he might have not have existed anytime after Vietnam. I don't think our militaries that now would probably tell him to go sit down and retire or force him. I don't think he would have the clout to do what he did. There was even times where
he not allowed him. They probably would not allowed him today, or even not even just today, probably even the last 15, 20 years, I probably would not allowed a guy like that to continue. They would not have been fond of him trying to go back. They're like, what are you doing? You're insane. You're going to die. He's just like, once again, another great way of reminding yourself how good we had. Because, yeah, we would not been like, even if guys like him existed today, yeah, they would never let us do this. No.
No. And there were, I mean, if you could spend hours going through that book or even some articles out there on some of the things he did. I mean, he saved people from drowning, I think one time. Yeah, it's just amazing that he even lived to be 83. And that's a long life for him. And he probably saw some shits. He probably did, and most likely did. And man, just be in a room with him and like even talk to him about some stuff, I think would be pretty crazy. Would be pretty wild.
Agree.
Yeah. But there you go. That's the main topic of the show. He was pretty metal. I would say that was pretty metal for a metal.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I'm never gonna forget that I read a story like this. Man, seriously, I will be telling my friends about this. Especially
okay, you should.
those
And
who do not know, especially there are a lot of people within our our little corner of YouTube. There are people who do know about Sabaton. I think we should definitely let people know, hey, just so you know, this is the guy who it's about.
Yeah,
and
and if you're new here, I know there's some new people in the chat. That's what you get. You get some jokes, some funny stuff, and really throughout the show. But then we find out some topic that we can really talk about and find interesting. Like last week, we talked about there's like these two orcas hunting great white sharks in South Africa, which I thought was pretty cool and fascinating. But we do stuff like that, so you can always find that here. Now we're